Israel is again being accused of targeting Palestinian civilians with no links to armed groups. According to witnesses in the occupied West Bank, a group, 7 men, 4 of them brothers, were killed in an Israeli airstrike early on 7th January as they sat around the fire in a village 6 miles from the city of Jenin. Interviews conducted by the BBC with relatives of the men killed, witnesses in the area at the time, and a paramedic at the scene provided strong evidence that the men were not members of armed militant groups and that no clashes with Israeli forces were taking place in the location at the time. The Israel Defense Forces has linked the attack to a military operation hours earlier in Jenin refugee camp in which a female soldier was killed. In Singapore, the Minister of Transport, S. Iswaran, is facing 27 counts in a bribery investigation case, which is one of the country's most serious and uncommon corruption cases. In his resignation letter released by the Prime Minister's office, Mr. Iswaran says he rejects the charges brought against him by the Corrupt Practices Investigation Bureau and will focus on clearing his name. Along with his resignation, he promised to refund his wages and allowances from the start of the investigations last July. Mr. Iswaran had taken a leave of absence but was still receiving monthly payments. And in Britain, the Parliament has approved a controversial bill to allow the country to send refugees arriving in the UK to Rwanda, an East African nation, where they will remain there while their asylum claims are processed. If they're successful, they will be able to return to the UK. The deal came after the detection of an increase in refugees arriving in Britain through small boats arranged by human trafficking gangs. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's government won the vote in Parliament by a majority of 320 to 276. 24 hours earlier, 60 Conservative members of Parliament had rebelled against the passage of the bill by backing amendments to strengthen it. The amendments were defeated, causing concern that these members of Parliament would also rebel on the main bill. The Rwanda Safety Bill is supposed to end legal challenges that have prevented Britain from sending refugees to Rwanda after the two countries struck a deal back in 2022. A court in Turkey has convicted the son of Somalia's president for the death of a motorcycle courier, but commuted a sentence of 2.5 years in prison to a fine. Prosecutors had requested that Mohammed Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud, the son of Somali president, was sentenced to up to 6 years in prison. His lawyer, Tuba Adjin, told reporters after the hearing that his father was planning to appeal the decision to commute the sentence. In America, former President Donald Trump was threatening with expulsion from his Manhattan civil trial on Wednesday after he repeatedly ignored a warning to keep quiet, as writer Jean Caro testified that he shattered her reputation after she accused him of sexual abuse. Judge Lewis Kaplan told the former president that his right to be present at the trial will be revoked if he remains disruptive. After an initial warning, Ms. Caro's lawyer said Mr. Trump could still be heard making remarks to his lawyers, including phrases like, "It's a witch hunt," and "It's really a con job." Afterwards, Trump ripped the judge in brief remarks to reporters at an office building he owns near the courthouse. He called the Bill Clinton's appointee a nasty judge and a Trump-hating guy, echoing his own social media posts that Mr. Kaplan was seething and hostile, and abusive, rude, and obviously not impartial. Mr. Trump had made similar comments about the judge in another case. An American woman who pleaded guilty to helping kill her mother and stuffing the body in a suitcase during a luxury vacation in Bali has been sentenced to 26 years in prison. That's in Chicago. Federal prosecutors had recommended a 28-year prison sentence for the lady, Heather Mack, for conspiring with her boyfriend to kill her mother, Shella Von Wallace Mack, and that happened in 2014. Ms. Mack's attorney says he expects her to be jailed for roughly 20 years, including good behavior credits available to all federal prisoners. His estimate also accounts for the judge giving Ms. Mark credit for the 2+ years she spent in custody in Chicago after completing a jail term in Indonesia. She was deported to the U.S. in 2021. In Central America, a Salvadoran woman has been freed from prison more than 7 years after she was convicted for having an abortion. The 28-year-old, identified simply as Lillian, was sentenced to 30 years in prison in 2015. She gave birth to a girl in a public hospital in 2015, but the baby suffered health complications and died there 3 days later. Prosecutors had accused Lillian of not taking care of the fetus during her pregnancy, and she was charged with negligence and aggravated murder. There's a total ban on abortion in El Salvador, which has one of the world's strictest anti-abortion laws. In Ecuador, a public prosecutor, Cesar Suarez, who was leading the investigation into an armed attack on a television station, was shot dead in the port city of Guayaquil. Ecuador Attorney General's office has confirmed this death, and reports suggest that he was followed by unknown assailants after leaving the prosecutor's office and was fatally shot while driving. Mr. Suarez had recently questioned 13 persons involved in the January 9 attack on the television station, where they had taken employees hostage during a live broadcast. He was known for handling cases related to drug trafficking, terrorism, and organized crime. Suarez had expressed concerns about his safety and had requested police protection in a newspaper interview just a day before the tragic incident.